So, we in the Dead by Daylight community have recently been voting on a new killer that will be coming into Dead by Daylight probably around later 2026. This is the Grimoire Killer, and as it's shaping up, it's an angelic, torment, projectile type killer. I've personally been liking the way it's been shaping up, and also recently some DBD content creators got early access to test the killer, and they also posted some footage of it, giving us the best look we've had to date on what the killer can actually do and its power. The beam of light is a very unique mechanic, and I love it. It is an entirely different power to any projectile we've ever seen, and the whole banishment mechanic, I'm very excited to see how that shapes up. The only thing I think is a bit weak with the power is the whole sin mechanic. As it is right now, it pretty much just acts as an infection, similar to Nemesis, Kresu, or Wesker. It pretty much acts as an extra step that needs to be applied to the survivor before the killer power can do it damage. And honestly, I feel like we could do a bit better than that. So without further ado, let's get into what I would do to change the Grimoire Killer. Like I said earlier, I enjoy most of the killer's design, the only thing being the torment part, the sin part, that I think is a bit weak and needs a little bit of work. So, the first thing I would do is take the sin mechanic and actually change it into two different status effects. The first one would serve as the replacement and pretty much do what the current sin mechanic already does. It acts as that extra stage that has to be applied before the power can do damage. I would change it from sin to something called the marked for judgment, or just marked, something along those lines, and it would just serve the purpose of you get hit by the beam, you get marked. Next time you get hit by the beam, it does damage. And there's another way to get marked when we get into the sin mechanic. So let's get right into that, because that is going to be the bulk of what I would change. So I would change the sin status effect to be more of like a gauge that builds up throughout the match. The original concept for sin was meant to be this type of status effect that you gain through your own actions, which makes far more sense than what it is now. Sin isn't really something that can be inflicted on you, it's something that is through your own actions, so I think we should really bring that back and try and lean into that. So, here's my concept. Sin is going to be a gauge that wraps around the survivor portrait. It'll be split into 4 sections, and it fills as you do sins, and it will decrease when you do virtuous acts. Sins will be things like the devs themselves recommended, something like repairing the gen while somebody is on hook, and like teabagging the killer. I think that'd be a really cool thing if they can make it work, but stuff like that. I'd also add sinful acts as things like stunning and blinding the killer, as well as freeing people from their banishment. So now that we know the sins, what virtuous acts will decrease your sin gauge? Well, honestly, I think pretty much everything to do with the benevolent metal, unhooking, healing, taking protection hits, stuff like that I feel would work best for decreasing sin, so you can counteract too much sin gain. Now that we've described how you gain and lose sin, what does the sin gauge actually do? Well, as you gain sin, you'll progress toward one of the little notches / every quarter of the gauge. You could say it kind of looks like Vecna's World Breaker, you know how it's split into the 4 quadrants. The first 3 quadrants will work relatively the same, and when you reach one, a handful of things will happen, and those things are: 1. You will get the marked status effect. 2. You will scream and reveal your aura to the killer for 5 seconds. And 3. All of the sin progress will be locked, at minimum, to that point on the gauge. So think similar to Sadako, where she can lock in some condemned stacks when she hooks. And, like I said earlier, this is the other way to get marked, because thematically it makes sense that as you commit sin, you're going to get marked for judgment, thus the beam will deal damage. And the scream and reveal your aura is just like an extra little effect it does. So that's how it works for the first 3 notches on the gauge. Once you reach 25%, 50%, and 75%, all of those things will happen and it'll lock in your progress, preventing you from going back down. So the more you sin, the closer you'll get to the top. And once the gauge is full, that's when something really interesting happens. When the gauge is filled, the survivor will become an irredeemable sinner, which changes a few things about the gameplay. 1. They will not gain marked simply because now they are completely immune to the killer's beam of light. 2. They will scream and have their aura revealed to the killer for 10 seconds, and there will also be a special sound effect to signify that a survivor has become an irredeemable sinner. And 3. When they are downed, the killer can perform a special mori on them. I feel like this would create an interesting tug of war with the sin gauge, where it's not necessarily a terrible thing if it gets filled, and in fact as the survivor you might want to fill it up to gain that immunity, but you run the risk of being moriable if you're downed. And on top of that, if the killer moris you, there's an extra little special effect which I'll explain now. The special mori would take inspiration from Pinhead's mori, where it isn't necessarily about killing the survivor, but giving them a divine judgment. The mori would start where the killer would pull the survivor into the banished realm. This would be the one time the killer can actually go into the realm to perform the mori. After you're pulled into the banished realm, what the killer would do would be they would pick up the survivor and put them in an Iron Maiden suit. Think Berserk or Fear and Hunger, which I think is the suit of armor I'll give as an example, the Penitent's armor. It's pretty much just a steel suit of armor that has spikes on the inside. The survivor would be put on that, it would close on them, and then they would be hung up by chains inside the banished realm, and they would it wouldn't kill them, but it would be a punishment, which I feel is very fitting for the killer. And as an added little effect, if any survivors get banished to that realm after this mori takes place, they can actually see the moried survivor in the suit, and you can even hear them making grunts of pain inside of it. I think thematically that would just be really cool. Now for the big kicker. If the killer performs this mori, they will gain permanent buffs for the remainder of the trial. Whether it be something like haste, increased break speed, or break action, or vault speed, or anything. Permanent buffs per every survivor they perform this mori on. So it could be one of those things where it really depends on how early the mori happens, but you could get a lot of value out of the buffs this does. Or if it's a late game, it might give you a little boost toward the end. It's pretty much the type of mori that won't happen very often, and like I said, it's one of those things where if you want the ability to become immune to the killer's power, you can absolutely become an irredeemable sinner. But then you have the issue of, if you get downed, you get moried, and you buff the killer for the rest of the trial. So it's that tug of war, like I said earlier. It's do you want to keep your sin down, or do you want to go all in on that full sinner playstyle? And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said at the beginning, that's really the only part of the power I really wanted to change. The beam of light is awesome, I think the aesthetic of the killer is amazing, and I just really want them to really lean more into the actual sin idea and not make it just a copy-paste affliction type mechanic. Curious to hear what you guys think of my rework. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What would you change? Or do you have an entirely different idea of how you rework the killer yourself? Honestly, if you have anything you'd like to share, leave it in the comments down below, and I'd absolutely love to continue the discussion down here. After all, this is meant to be a killer that the community is meant to have a big hand in, so I feel like speaking about it and bringing up ideas to the devs is the best way to make sure this killer is the best it could possibly be. This is my first time doing a discussion type video, and it's a nice quick one, but I'd like to do more stuff like this in the future. I have some topics I'd like to discuss when it comes to DBD concepts, or other balance takes. We'll see. But anyways, hopefully you enjoyed, and let me know in the comments down below. Have a good day.